Hey internet, it's Phil. So recently I've been rereading and rewatching the Harry Potter books and movies, and I have a lot to say about Harry Potter. Probably too much because my friends have asked me to stop texting them at 4 in the morning to talk about Dumbledore, which I think is a reasonable thing to do because there's a lot to say, but I'm going to shift the burden onto you guys instead. So we're going to go through every one of the Harry Potter books and movies. I'm going to focus a little bit more on the movies because they're shorter and kind of easier to digest, but we're going to talk about some of the differences and some of the similarities. We're going to talk about some of the themes and the archetypes that J.K. Rowling is employing, and hopefully by the end we're going to have a better understanding and appreciation for the series. Before we begin though, I kind of want to talk about how I feel about book to movie adaptations in general. If I can, if at all possible, I like to watch a movie or a TV show or whatever and then read the book it's based on. The reason being, in a movie or a TV show, you have to condense things. There's always going to be a little less story. There's going to be a little less background in service of making a narrative that fits into an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, which I think is perfectly fine. It's nice to get a story that gets all wrapped up in that time. So if I can watch the movie and then go read the book that has more information and more characters and more backstory, that's really satisfying for me. I get to get more story. Whereas if I read the book first and then go to the movie, it's like taking things away and I'm just thinking about the things that they didn't adapt or the things that I would have done differently, where for whatever reason, if I go from a movie to the source material, that doesn't really happen to me. And as a result, things like Harry Potter, I can enjoy the movies and the books completely equally, even though they have a lot of differences. With Harry Potter in particular, I actually watched the first 5 movies before I ever read any of the books. Once I started reading the books, I went through the whole series because I couldn't stop. But as a result, I think I feel a lot better about the movies than a lot of like hardcore book fans do. I just like both. I think they're both cool. But with that out of the way, let's talk about the first book and movie, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. We open on Albus Dumbledore, the kind of old man, wizened Gandalf of this story, and he is leaving the baby Harry Potter at the door of the Dursleys. The Dursleys are his aunt and uncle, and they hate anything that's not normal. They hate anything that's weird, and it turns out that magic, which is going to be kind of a big deal in this story, is squarely in the realm of things they don't like. As a result, they don't like Harry. They treat him really badly. They're pretty abusive to him. They don't really give him anything of his own. They make him live in a cupboard under the stairs, and they just treat him like garbage. So right off the bat, a criticism that's often lobbed at this story, and at Dumbledore specifically, is that he let Harry grow up in this abusive environment. Later on in the story, we're going to get a magical reason why Harry has to come here every summer. And it's fine, it works, it makes some sense, it kind of tries to explain it away, but in the end, there's always going to be this idea that Harry was allowed to grow up in this pretty awful house. But there is a reason for it in terms of storytelling. J.K. Rowling is looking at a lot of different things in this story, but one of them for sure is abuse and family and the way that they affect us and the way that they build us. Harry has to come from a rotten home and a rotten place in order for the things that happen to him after to have a certain meaning. You know, he never had a real family until he meets the people that he's going to meet in this movie. It is the journey that he goes on to kind of find his own happiness. So him surviving this abuse is really important to his character and to who he is. You know, he didn't grow up happy, and that informs his character for the rest of the series, and we're going to see these themes of abuse again over and over and over. So Harry grows up pretty miserable, but he does occasionally use magic. He doesn't mean to. It happens when he has extreme emotions. And he can also talk to snakes, which is kind of a weird thing that's going to be important later. So right around the time that he's turning 11, these letters start showing up at the house, and they're carried by owls, and they're saying that Harry has been accepted to magic school, basically, and his aunt and uncle know exactly what's happening, and they don't want any part of it. So the family goes to this shack, and then Rubius Hagrid shows up, and he's this like half-giant, awesome dude, knocks down the door, he's like, "Harry, you're a wizard." And he tells him that he's going to go to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. So in the books, Harry has to live at home for a little while longer before he goes to Hogwarts, and it's like super awkward. In the movies, Hagrid literally abducts him basically and takes him away, but no one involved actually minds that. It pretty much works out for everybody, so it's all good. Hagrid takes him to Diagon Alley, which is this little kind of alleyway in the middle of London that's full of magic stuff. It has all the magic shops and all these magic people. Harry needs to pick up supplies for school, so first they have to go to the bank, and it turns out that Harry's parents were loaded and they left him literal piles of gold, which is pretty cool. And Hagrid also takes something secret out of Professor Dumbledore's vault, which he kind of puts in his pocket, and he's like, don't talk about this. This is not a thing to tell anybody. This is, I think, a good time to talk about escapism. The whole first book really is about a classic escape story. And this is a story that real kids tell themselves all the time. They come up with these ideas, I'm not really me. I'm not nobody. I'm special. I'm famous. My parents or guardians aren't my real parents. I have these crazy parents that did amazing things. I have this whole other life waiting for me. It's classic and kids really respond to it, and that's why it's being used here. Harry is whisked away from this really awful home to see that he can use magic. His parents were heroes. He is rich. It's a power fantasy and a really effective one, and I think that's why Harry makes a good main character, because you can kind of see yourself in him and that desire to go. I mean, how many kids waited for their Hogwarts letter on their 11th birthday and never got it? It's just a really relatable idea. So Harry goes to get a wand, and while he's in the wand shop, a wand chooses him because they have kind of a mind of their own. And the one that chooses him, wouldn't you know it, happens to be the sister wand to Lord Voldemort's. So Voldemort was this evil wizard who wanted to take over everything. He wanted to get rid of anyone that wasn't pure blood magical, and Harry's parents fought against him. Voldemort came to kill them, and he wanted to kill Harry too, but when he used a death curse on Harry, it rebounded. It gave him a scar, but it didn't kill him, and it seemed to kill Voldemort, although a lot of people think that he might still be out there. So in the book, Harry also goes to the robe shop, and that's where he meets Draco Malfoy, who's going to be his foil and kind of enemy for the rest of the series. The interaction is reproduced to some extent in the actual school later, but Draco is an interesting character to start, because he really wants to be friends with Harry. He thinks that he and Harry are going to be best buds, and he never mentions it in the story, and I think it would have been awkward to find a place for it, but J.K. Rowling has said that among dark wizards, it was believed that Harry rejected Voldemort's curse because he was also a really powerful dark wizard, and that he was going to be kind of the second coming, and even better Voldemort. And so they're all kind of waiting for him, I think really out of desperation, because they've lost the one thing that kind of gave them meaning and purpose and protection. They think he's going to come back and be their leader. So Malfoy, meeting Harry Potter, has been told his whole life that this kid is going to be your new dude. He's going to be our leader. And when Harry proves to be everything that Malfoy's parents have taught him he should hate, it strikes a really strong blow. And it's this kind of a lonely, sad angle to a character who, through most of the series, is just smarmy and the worst. But I also don't think there's any point where Malfoy would have vocalized that, because he's really the one that would have had to tell us, and he would never admit that he was looking forward to being Harry's friend, and he was, offended that Harry didn't shake his hand and, stop associating with people who weren't pure magical blood. But anyway, Malfoy is a classist, racist jerk, and Harry decides he doesn't want any part of that. So he gets on the train, and he's going to Hogwarts, and he meets the Weasleys. The Weasleys are a poor family, but they are just nice. They are so welcoming. They immediately take Harry in, basically. And he gets to know Ron, who's in his ear. They eat a lot of candy together, and then they meet Hermione, who is kind of nerdy and a know-it-all, but very talented in magic, despite being born to Muggle parents. So everybody gets to Hogwarts. The first years are sorted into one of four houses. We have Gryffindor, which represents bravery and courage. We have Ravenclaw, which is knowledge and wit. We have Hufflepuff, who is friendship, loyalty, and anyone that the other houses don't really want. And then Slytherin, which is cunning and ambition. We are told that every wizard who is bad has come from Slytherin. It's an opinion that we're given, but it is a commonly held opinion, and it's something that we're going to talk a lot about, because in a series whose hallmark is moral ambiguity, Slytherin House really gets a raw deal. And they remain kind of one-dimensional up until literally the last page of the last book. So we're going to talk about them more as it kind of comes into play in the actual story, but just put a pin in that and remember that Slytherin gets a bad rap. So Harry meets his teachers, he starts going to wizard classes, and the one that really bears mentioning is that he meets Professor Snape, who is the potions master. Snape hates Harry, immediately has complete disdain for this kid. We're going to learn obviously why, but it's very apparent from the moment they meet that he does not like this child. Also in this sequence, there are a couple of times where we see Seamus Finnegan, who is a kid who lives in Harry's dorm, blow something up, and it becomes kind of a running gag in the background of the movies, which results 8 years from now in an amazing payoff in the final film, which is really nice because it seemed like it was just kind of a thing that they did, and it actually ends up going somewhere, which is kind of cool. But during a flying lesson, Harry and Malfoy kind of have this fight, and they're both flying around, and they're not supposed to be doing that. And Professor McGonagall catches Harry, but instead of punishing him, she puts him on the Quidditch team. Quidditch is like magical broom soccer, sort of, but it's like the only sport anyone in the wizarding world plays, and Harry's the youngest person to be put on one of the house teams in like 100 years. Harry, Ron, and Hermione accidentally wander into this corridor and they find a three-headed dog, which is pretty bad, and it tries to eat them, but they get away. Hermione notices, though, that it is standing on top of something. It is on a trap door. And when the magical newspaper says that someone broke into the Hogwarts vault at Gringotts, the Wizarding Bank, Harry believes that whatever Hagrid took from that vault is what's being hidden down there. Ron, who is kind of a jerk, makes fun of Hermione for always correcting him really loudly and in public, and seems pretty surprised when she sees it and runs away crying. She ends up in the bathroom crying all night, which is unfortunate because a troll has been unleashed into the castle on Halloween night. Harry and Ron go to rescue her. They end up in the bathroom with the troll, but they manage to knock it out. When they get caught and are about to get in trouble, Hermione covers for them and kind of makes up this story, and from that moment the three of them are solidified as friends. So the three of them become convinced that Professor Snape is trying to steal whatever is being guarded by the three-headed dog. During Harry's first Quidditch match, Hermione believes that Snape is casting a spell on Harry because she's staring at him and muttering something and he's falling off his broom. She goes over and sets his robes on fire, and he knocks everybody over, and then it stops. Something weird in the book is that this is one of the only times in the entire series that the camera, so to speak, goes away from Harry and we follow just Hermione for a bit. It is really off-putting when you reread it because it's just so uncommon. Usually if there's a chapter that's not from Harry's perspective, it's right at the beginning of a book and it goes back to him right after. So it's just kind of a strange little artifact as Rowling was kind of figuring out how the books were going to be structured. During Christmas, Ron and Harry stay at Hogwarts. Harry gets presents for like the first time ever. In the books, his aunt and uncle sent him like a 50-pence piece, but he gets a sweater knit by Mrs. Weasley, and he gets an invisibility cloak sent by a mysterious stranger who is definitely not Dumbledore. So Harry uses the cloak to sneak around Hogwarts at night when he's not supposed to be out of bed. He sees Snape threatening Professor Quirrell, who I just realized I didn't mention before now, and he's going to be kind of important. So Professor Quirrell is the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. He is kind of cowardly and he stutters a lot, and he just doesn't like touching anyone, especially doesn't want to touch Harry. But seeing this out of context looks really bad for Snape. Harry also finds a mirror, and in this mirror he sees himself with his parents. And Dumbledore finds him because he keeps coming back to this thing, and he explains that this is the mirror of Erised, and it shows you whatever you most desire. And even though it's really nice, people waste away in front of it because all they do is just stare at the things that they wish they could have instead of living their actual life, so he moves it so Harry can't keep going back to it. Hermione figures out that the thing that's being guarded at Hogwarts is the Sorcerer's Stone. It can turn lead into gold, but more importantly, it can make an immortality elixir. The kids visit Hagrid one day after hours, and they see that he's been given a dragon egg by someone at the pub. That's fairly illegal. So they need to kind of hide it, but Malfoy ends up seeing them and goes to tell McGonagall. In the books, this goes down a little differently. They see that he has the dragon, and the dragon ends up biting Ron, and then Ron contacts his brother who works with dragons in Romania, and he sends a bunch of his friends over to come get it. So Harry and Hermione go out to give them the dragon. Neville Longbottom, who is kind of the bumbling, can't do anything right character, tries to warn them that Malfoy knows what's happening, and the four of them all get caught being out of bed. In the movie, it doesn't make any sense really why they went to visit Hagrid after hours. It's a little contrived just to make it shorter. I understand that doing like a reverse dragon heist wouldn't have fit in the movie. There was just no time for it. But it is a little clumsy. But more importantly, Neville not being present and given detention because they lose a ton of points for their house and everyone hates them for a while. It takes out the context that explains his actions later in the movie. So it makes that moment when he stands up to the kids later a little less impactful. I don't know that there's any way to fix that really. It's just a consequence of having to fit everything into a couple of hours. But it is a scene from the books that I really like because of how it kind of informs Neville's character later on. But anyway, Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Malfoy all get detention, and they are going to go into the Forbidden Forest with Hagrid, which seems like not a super fair punishment for 11-year-olds, especially because Hagrid sends two of them off by themselves in a forest that they've been told repeatedly is very, very dangerous. But anyway, they're looking for a unicorn because something's been killing unicorns, which is like a super, super not cool thing to do. And it turns out that there is a robed figure that is like sucking the metallic looking blood out of them. And it's pretty creepy. It attacks Harry, but Harry is saved by a centaur. The centaur tells him that he has just been attacked by Lord Voldemort. He's back, and he's trying to extend his life by drinking unicorn blood, but what he really wants is an immortality elixir, which, as you may recall, can be made with the stone that's being hidden in the school. So Harry is convinced that Snape is working for Voldemort and he's trying to get this stone. He tries telling a couple of teachers, no one believes him because Snape's a teacher, he wouldn't do that. So in what is going to be established as a pretty regular pattern, the kids take it upon themselves to go get the stone. So before Harry and the others can go out to find the stone, Neville is in the common room and he's going to stop them because he doesn't want to lose any more points. In the books, it's a little more personal because he feels like he already let them do something bad once and he doesn't want everyone to be mad at him again. But Hermione like cold clocks him, she petrifies him, and he just like falls to the ground and they're like, sorry Neville, you can't do anything to stop us. It's kind of mean. It's a little mean what they do. They don't give him an explanation or anything, and it sucks, but that's kind of how life is going to be for Neville for a few years. So the kids get back to where the three-headed dog was. It's been put to sleep. Someone has already gone down and gone for the stone. The kids go down and they get caught in some vines, which they have to just kind of sit there and relax through. And then they have to go fly and get a key. It's flying around with wings, but there's a broom right there so you can just fly up and get it. And this is a really weird part of the story because the professors at Hogwarts have set up not traps, but kind of video game puzzles to get to a precious artifact that they're guarding. And all the tests are pretty easy. They can all be solved by first years. Not to mention somebody already came through and solved them. So I don't know why they kind of got set up again. But it is not a terribly secure system. The magical world is pretty whimsical in general and it's pretty kind of relaxed. But this seems like a little lax on the part of the professors. This seems a little too easy to get through. But anyway, next to the giant chessboard, you just have to play chess, but you're one of the pieces, so you can get killed. There's room for 3 players, which is weird because whoever is in there already got through with just himself, but whatever. In the books, there's another troll and a potions thing that Snape set up, but we don't have time for that. This movie's almost over. Ron gets hurt playing the chess game, and Hermione says to look after him, so Harry goes on ahead, where he sees not Snape, but Professor Quirrell, who you may recall I mentioned like maybe a minute ago. Quirrell comes clean. He's actually not stuttery. He's actually not really a coward. He's just pretending to be that way to throw people off the scent. But Snape actually found out what he was doing and tried to stop him. As it turns out, Voldemort has possessed Quirrell's body and he's hanging out on the back of his head. And even now, years later, it is gross. It's a gross, like too real effect in a kid's movie. And it is very, very unnerving. But anyway, Voldemort wants to finish what he started. He wants to come back to power, and he wants to kill Harry Potter, but he needs a Sorcerer's Stone, and the only obstacle left is the Mirror of Erised. Harry looks in the mirror and sees himself kind of pointing to his pocket, and finds that the stone has been transported there. The Quirrell-Voldemort combo pack attacks him, and it turns out that Harry's hands kind of make his skin, in the books they make his skin kind of erupt in boils and burn, but in the movie it turns him to stone a little bit. So, Harry in the movie lays his hands on Professor Quirrell's face and turns him to stone until he crumbles and Voldemort's like spirit leaves. And it really wasn't until literally the time I watched the movie for this video that I really thought about the fact that Harry kills a man. He murders Professor Quirrell. And like, okay, self-defense, yeah, whatever. But like, he straight up murders him. And no one says anything about it. No one brings it up. Harry doesn't seem to really be that disturbed about it. He never asks, you know, was Professor Quirrell okay? Did I kill him? Should I feel bad? That never comes up, and it's a little weird. It's a strange change to make. In the books, Quirrell dies because Voldemort leaves him. But in here, Harry physically kills him with his own hands. But I guess if Dumbledore doesn't care, it's fine. Just, he killed the dude. Anyway. So Harry wakes up in the hospital wing. Dumbledore gives him a talk about how he was able to defeat Quirrell because there was some strange connection between him and Voldemort, and that the stone's going to be destroyed, so its creator, Nicholas Flamel, who is one of Dumbledore's friends, is going to die because he's not going to be immortal anymore, but he's lived for like 600 years, so like he had enough, it's fine, I'm not that sorry about it. And then we get to the end of year feast. So every year, the houses get points. You get points if you do something good, you lose points if you do something bad, and I believe you get points for winning the Quidditch Cup? I don't remember. and it's too late to look at it now. Anyway, Slytherin won. Gryffindor is in dead last because of all the points that Harry, Ron, and Hermione lost being out of bed and visiting Hagrid. Frankly, it seems like an unfair amount of points to give them for, you know, a relatively minor first infraction, but McGonagall's a queen, I'm not going to tell her how to do her job. So the entire hall is decorated in Slytherin colors, and, you know, they won, and they're really happy, except Dumbledore stands up and says that he has to award some last-minute points. So Dumbledore awards points to Harry, Ron, and Hermione for their valiant deeds of the night before, and he awards points to Neville for standing up to his friends, and they get enough points to win the House Cup. And then Dumbledore like waves his hand, and all the banners turn to Gryffindor banners, and everyone except for the Slytherins cheer. And I have always been greatly disturbed by the end of this story, the movie and the book. Every student in the other three houses walked into that hall believing that Slytherin won because they were told that Slytherin won. And in the case of Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw, they thought they got second and third. And then Dumbledore stands up and gives extra points, like hundreds of extra points, to 4 kids that take Gryffindor from last place to first place, and then they win. And yeah, they did some cool stuff. Not that cool, but Dumbledore let everyone believe that Slytherin had won. Like in every other case, points are just added and subtracted whenever you want, and if you're a teacher, it just happens automatically. Dumbledore chose to wait until this moment to give the points and change the result of the House Cup. He let the Slytherins walk into that hall thinking they won, feeling good. There are some 7th year Slytherins. It's their last day at Hogwarts. They're not evil. Their parents weren't Death Eaters. They didn't do anything bad. They just put their nose to the grindstone. They didn't break any rules. They tried to answer questions to get points, and it's just taken away from them because of some stuff that happened the night before. And it's so mean. It is so unbelievably mean, and it's played as this like really fun, like, oh yay, the good guys won, which is fine. Like that's how it's supposed to be. It's a children's book. I'm not going to get too uppity about it, but I am going to get a little uppity about it because it is super messed up on the part of Dumbledore, and it hits me every time. Every time I watch this movie, for some reason in the movie especially, because you see all the kids being happy that Gryffindor, you know, just got first place for nothing. It always colors the end of the first chapter of this story for me. It's just so messed up. But that's Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. That's the first chapter of this heptology. Although the movie is an octology? I don't know if that's the right word, and I should have looked it up before I started recording, but it's too late now. Anyway, this is, you know, obviously the most simplistic of the stories. It's the one that kind of introduces the most kind of basic wizarding stuff to us, and it's easy, I think, when you know what comes later and how much more mature the story gets and how much more complex the story gets, to kind of discount especially the first 2 books and movies. The movie especially, I think, is a little more awkward. They're still trying to kind of figure out how to portray this world. Obviously there's a lot of child actors, not all of them are amazing. I think by the end all of them are going to be very good, but you know, it's kid actors. There's not much you can do about it. But I'm just very willing to forgive 99% of the faults of this book and the movie because it's still trying to figure out what it's going to be. It's trying to figure out its audience a little bit. You know, this is kind of intended to be read, I think, at the age that Harry is, and I think for an 11-year-old, this is a very good story. It's complex enough for, I think, that age, but it's not too much, and it's just nice. It's nice and kind of quaint and simple. And after kind of going through the rest of the series and how intense it gets, that's kind of nice. I kind of like going back to a simpler time and just seeing this kind of cute little wizard story that has a surprisingly dark ending where a young child kills a teacher and doesn't get in trouble for it. And no one even acknowledges that it happened or that it was sad. Because Quirrell was a bad guy at the end, but he was probably nice before that. I don't know what happened to him in Romania. It's probably pretty messed up. But anyway, that's the first Harry Potter movie and book. Hopefully you enjoyed this kind of summary analysis thing. I don't really know. Well, I just wanted to talk about Harry Potter. To be honest, I'm not really thinking too far ahead. But hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did, let me know with a like or a comment. Let me know what you think of the series. Let me know what your favorite book or movie is. Mine is probably 4 for both. I really love Goblet. If you want YouTube to occasionally show you that I've uploaded a video, you can hit the subscribe button. If you want to get annoying notifications every time I upload a video, you can hit the bell icon. And I will see you soon.